The laughter around the table cut off too quickly, like someone had closed a door. Evelyn tilted her glass, studying the wine instead of my face. The smile stayed careful and polished. "So what does it feel like to be useless?" "Mom." The word landed hard. Not loud, not dramatic. Just placed there, clean and deliberate, where it could not be ignored. Her mother stiffened beside her napkin halfway to her mouth. My son stared at the edge of his plate as if the answer might be written there. No one moved to stop it. No one corrected her. I let the silence stretch, long enough to feel the weight of it settle on every shoulder at the table. Incredible. Evelyn blinked, surprised by the calm. Her smile wavered, then returned sharper. The kind of smile that expected a follow-up apology. I didn't give her one. "I just stopped paying your rent." The color drained from her face so fast it was almost impressive. The glass slipped in her hand and tapped the table once too hard. Across from her, her mother inhaled sharply. "Rent!" The word came out loud, unfinished, as if it had escaped before permission was granted. What rent? My son finally looked up. His mouth opened, closed. His shoulders drew in on themselves, small and tight, like a boy caught with his hand in the jar. Evelyn turned toward him, eyes wide now, no smile left to hide behind. "Daniel," he swallowed. The sound carried in the quiet. Her mother's chair scraped back an inch. "You told us you paid for everything," she said, staring at him. "You were very clear about that." I folded my hands in my lap, steady. No shaking. No rush to explain. I had done enough explaining for one lifetime. Evelyn shook her head once sharply. "This isn't funny. I'm not joking." The words didn't need force. They held on their own. Daniel's face had gone slack, like something inside him had finally given way. He looked at me, then really looked, as if seeing me for the first time in years. The table stayed frozen, caught between what had already been said and what could never be unsaid. I sat there quiet while the truth took its first breath. The story you are about to hear is a work of fiction created by the Her Shadow Channel team, based on real-life situations to convey lessons about family emotions and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. I am 69 years old. I have been a widow for 14 years. I spent 3 decades working in public education, the kind of work that teaches you how to listen without interrupting and how to stretch a dollar until it behaves. When I retired, I did it cleanly. No debt, no favors owed. I was proud of that. Daniel used to tease me about my envelopes, groceries, utilities, repairs. "You run your life like a school office," he once laughed, watching me line them up on the kitchen table. I smiled then. I liked order. Order meant safety. After his father died, it was just the two of us. I worked longer hours so Daniel could stay in the same school. I skipped vacations so he could take enrichment classes. When he graduated, he hugged me so tightly my ribs hurt. "I wouldn't be anything without you," he said into my shoulder. I believed him. I had earned that belief. For years, he checked in every Sunday. We talked about his work, his plans, the future he was building. He asked my advice. He listened. When he introduced Evelyn, he stood closer to her than to me, but that felt natural. Sons grow, mothers adjust. The calls changed slowly, shorter, more rushed, always near the beginning of the month. He stopped asking how I was doing. Started asking if I had eaten, as if that were the same thing as caring. "I'm fine," I told him every time. He believed me because it was convenient. My income never changed. My habits didn't either. I still clipped coupons, still cooked at home, still told myself independence was a muscle that needed constant use. When Daniel needed help, I told myself this was temporary, a bridge, not a destination. "I've got this," I said whenever he hesitated. He let me. By the time I noticed how quiet my life had become, the silence felt normal. I didn't recognize it as erasure. I called it love. Evelyn arrived early, which felt intentional. She walked through my front door as if she were being shown a property, rather than meeting the woman who raised her husband. "This place is charming," she said, eyes moving ahead of her words. "Very quaint." Daniel hovered behind her, already uneasy. He smiled too fast. "It's got history," he offered, reaching for the wine like it might rescue him. "History," she repeated, tasting it. Her gaze paused on the furniture, the framed photos, the things I had kept, because they worked. "You don't see homes like this much anymore. Everything's so updated now." I nodded and poured water. The glasses clinked softly, the only interruption. At the table, she studied the meal before touching it. "You cooked all of this yourself?" "Yes, that's impressive," she said, then laughed lightly. "I'd burn the place down." Daniel laughed with her. Too quickly. Too loudly. Her mother wasn't there that night, but Evelyn spoke as if she were. "My family entertains a lot. Big gatherings. Catered, usually. It's just easier." She smiled again. "But this is nice. Simple. Simple." The word settled between us. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom makes the best food," he said finally. Then he stood and refilled Evelyn's glass, turning his back to me while he did it. She leaned toward him, whispering something I couldn't hear. He nodded, eyes lowered the way he used to when he was a boy, caught between wanting approval and knowing better. "I love that you're so independent," Evelyn said to me, voice bright. "Not everyone at your stage manages that. My stage." I folded my napkin once. Then again, "I've always taken care of myself." "Of course," she replied, already looking past me. "That's important." Daniel launched into a story about work words tumbling over each other. He didn't look at me while he spoke. He didn't look at her either. He spoke to the space between them, filling it before anything else could be said. I watched him choose comfort over courage. I chose quiet over correction. Peace felt easier then. Daniel arrived alone. That should have told me everything. He didn't sit right away. He paced once, then stopped near the window like he needed something to lean on. When he finally faced me, his hands were already clasped together. "I need help," he said, quiet, practiced. Not desperate, prepared. I waited. Silence had always made him talk. "The place we found is more than I expected," he continued. "It's temporary, just until things settle." "Settle how?" I asked. He exhaled through his nose. "Evelyn's parents have expectations. You know how they are." I nodded once. I had met them only in stories always told with the same careful edits. "They think I'm covering everything," he added. "I am, mostly. I just need a little support to bridge the gap." "How much?" I asked. He named the number without meeting my eyes. It was precise, calculated, small enough to sound reasonable, large enough to change my month. "I'll handle the rest," he said quickly. "I just need help with part of the rent." 1 year. 12 months. After that, I'm on my feet. I watched his mouth keep moving while his shoulders tightened. This mattered more than he wanted to admit. "There's one thing," he said, lowering his voice. "Evelyn can't know." I didn't respond. "She'd misunderstand," he added. "She'd think I couldn't provide. I need her family to believe I've got this." The word sat heavy between us. Not need. Image. 1 year, he repeated. "That's all I'm asking." I looked at him then. The man he had become. The boy he still was when he asked for something he wasn't ready to earn. "I can do that," I said. Relief rushed into him too fast. "Thank you. I knew you'd understand." "On one condition," I said. He stilled. 1 year, I said again. Not a day longer. He nodded immediately. "Too quickly." "Of course." I transferred the money the following week. I told myself this was love, not surrender, and the silence began its work. The year ended without a conversation. No check-in, no acknowledgement. The transfers continued as if they had always belonged there. By the 2nd year, Daniel stopped calling on Sundays. His voice appeared closer to the first of the month, punctual, in a way nothing else was. He spoke quickly, efficiently, as if time were a resource he could no longer spare. "Everything's fine," he would say before I could answer. "Just busy." I adjusted my life around that word. Busy. I stopped buying fresh fruit every week, learned which meals stretched the farthest. When the back steps began to sag, I placed a chair beside them instead of calling for repairs. Invitations from friends went unanswered. I told myself I preferred quiet. On Thanksgiving, I cooked out of habit. I packed leftovers into containers that stayed untouched in the refrigerator. Daniel texted late. Evelyn's parents had planned something last minute. He promised to make it up to me. He didn't. By the third year, Evelyn's presence was everywhere I wasn't. Photos appeared on my phone uninvited. Dinners with white tablecloths, weekend trips, new furniture behind carefully angled smiles. She looked comfortable, assured. Daniel looked tired. When I mentioned the year we had agreed on, his tone changed. You know, things aren't that simple anymore. I said nothing. Silence had become my contribution. The fourth year arrived quietly. I marked it alone. The number startled me when I realized how easily it had grown. I did the math once late at night and stopped halfway through. The total made my chest feel tight. Daniel called again, voice clipped. I'll need it a day early this time. No greeting, no pause. I transferred the money without comment. The confirmation screen stayed lit longer than usual. I stared at my own name spelled correctly, attached to a choice I no longer recognized. Afterward, I sat with the quiet and felt how small my world had become, how carefully it had been trimmed to fit around someone else's comfort. No one noticed the difference. And that was the hardest part. The pain began as a suggestion, a stiffness in the morning, a hesitation on the stairs. I learned to move around it the way women my age learn to move around many things. At my appointment, the doctor didn't soften his tone. He pressed 2 fingers into my knee and waited for my breath to catch. It did. This isn't optional anymore, he said. You need consistent treatment. I nodded like someone who planned to listen. He slid a paper across the desk. The numbers were clear, monthly, ongoing. I can manage, I told him. He studied my face. Managing and healing are not the same. At home, I lined up my envelopes again. Groceries, utilities, repairs, rent. I moved the new one to the side. Treatment. Medication. It stayed there untouched. Daniel called that evening. His voice sounded distracted, cheerful in a thin way. We're thinking of a short trip next month. Evelyn found a great deal. That sounds nice, I said. He didn't ask how my appointment went. He didn't ask why my voice felt tight. I'll need the transfer on the 1st, he added. Things are a little tight right now. I closed my eyes. The word tight had lost its meaning. Of course, I said. The next morning, I didn't fill the prescription. I folded the paper once, then again, until it fit neatly into a drawer. I told myself I could wait. I told myself pain was temporary. Later that week, Evelyn's photos appeared on my screen. Sunlight, shopping bags, plates arranged too carefully to be accidental. Her smile was wide, effortless. Daniel stood beside her in one of them, arm around her waist. He looked younger there, lighter. When my knees locked on the way up the steps, I sat down where I was. I waited for the feeling to pass. It always did eventually. I learned how to measure my days by what I could still endure. How to choose between standing and swallowing, walking, and paying. The transfers continued. The pain settled in deeper, and I told no one. I spread the statements across the table and lined them up by month. The pattern was clean, too clean to argue with. Daniel had been precise. Always the same amount. Always on time. I read my own name at the top of each page until it stopped feeling like mine. I reached for a pen and started adding. Slow at first. Careful. When the column grew long, my hand tightened. I finished anyway. The total stared back at me, calm and absolute. Years of transfers, years of silence. I pushed the paper away, then pulled it back again as if distance could change the truth. I picked up the phone and called the leasing office down the street. My voice stayed even. I'm helping a family member look for a place, I told the woman who answered. 2 bedrooms. Something reasonable. She didn't hesitate. Numbers came easily to her. Ranges, locations, availability. That neighborhood runs lower than people think, she said. Most places are well under what you'd expect. I thanked her and ended the call. The room felt smaller. I called Daniel next. He answered on the second ring, breathless. Hey, Mom, can this wait? We're heading out. It won't take long, I said. A pause. Then, okay. How much is the rent exactly? Another pause. Longer this time. It varies, he replied. Depends on the unit. Give me the number. He named it. The same number he had always named. The one that had made everything else possible. I said nothing. Why, he asked sharper now. I spoke to a leasing office today, I replied. They were very clear. Silence rushed in thick and heavy. I could hear him breathing. I could hear Evelyn in the background laughing at something I wasn't part of. That's not the point, he finally said. It is now. I ended the call before he could find another explanation. I didn't need more words. The math had already spoken. I gathered the papers and stacked them neatly. My hands didn't shake. For the first time in years, I knew exactly where I stood. What happens when silence finally runs out? The room had not recovered from the first revelation. It lingered in the air, heavy and unfinished like smoke. No one wanted to breathe in. I stayed seated. I didn't lean forward. I didn't reach for my glass. There was nothing left to steady. I've been transferring the same amount every month, I said, my voice even. For years. On the first. Sometimes earlier, when I was asked. Daniel stared at me, eyes wide, as if this were new information. It wasn't. Evelyn's mother turned toward him fully now. You told us you were covering everything yourself. Daniel's lips parted. Nothing came out. I continued unhurried. I agreed to help for 1 year. That was the condition. 1 year became 4. Evelyn shook her head. This is not how you do this. You don't drop something like this at dinner. I didn't drop it, I said. You picked it up when you called me useless. Her chair scraped back sharply. That was a joke. No, I replied. It wasn't. Her mother's voice cut through the tension, low and controlled. How much? Daniel flinched. I answered before he could. Enough to change how I live. Enough to skip treatment. Enough to be careful with groceries. The table went quiet again, but this time it was different. It wasn't waiting. It was reckoning. Evelyn looked at Daniel, searching for something solid. Is this true? He swallowed hard. I was handling it. Her mother let out a slow breath. You lied to us. I didn't want to look weak, he said. And you thought this was strength, she replied. I folded my napkin once and placed it on the table. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here to end something. Daniel's head snapped up. Mom, it's over, I said. The transfers, the silence, all of it. No one argued. No one laughed. The truth had taken its place at the table, and it wasn't moving. Is saying no abandonment or correction. The first of the month arrived without ceremony. No alarms. No reminders. I made coffee and let the morning pass without opening my banking app. The phone rang before noon. You forgot, Daniel said. No greeting, no softness. Panic sat just under the words. I didn't. A pause. Then his voice sharpened. Mom, this isn't funny. We have deadlines. I know. Another pause, longer this time. You can't just stop. I can, I replied, and I have. His breath came fast. Evelyn is freaking out. Her mother's asking questions. This puts us in a terrible position. It puts me in a new one, I said. That's not fair. I waited. Silence used to frighten him. It still did. I'll pay you back, he said, rushing now. I just need time. A few months, I swear. You've sworn before. That was different. It wasn't. He lowered his voice the way he used to when he wanted something. I need you. I closed my eyes. The word landed differently now. You needed me when this started, I said. What you're doing now is asking me to disappear. A door closed somewhere on his end. Evelyn's voice drifted through the line, tight and distant. She wasn't asking how I was. She wasn't asking anything at all. She's staying with her mother for a while, Daniel said quietly. This is because of you. I let that sit. No, I said. This is because of lies. He exhaled hard. So that's it. That's it. The call ended without goodbye. I filled the prescription that afternoon. The pharmacist slid the bag across the counter and met my eyes. I nodded once. It felt like permission. That evening, I moved the rent envelope out of the row. I didn't replace it with anything. The space it left behind felt honest. I slept without setting an alarm. In the quiet that followed, I stood upright on my own terms and stayed there. Freedom at 69 arrived quietly. The mornings came without urgency. My knees complained less. Not gone, just manageable. I took my medication without calculating what it would cost me later. Daniel called once 2 months after the dinner. His voice sounded careful, like he was testing thin ice. I wanted to check in. I'm doing well. A pause. I'm figuring things out. I know. He waited for more. I didn't offer it. I'm paying everything myself now, he said, almost defensive. Smaller place, fewer extras. That sounds responsible. He exhaled. Evelyn hasn't come back yet. I'm sorry. Another pause. He wanted reassurance. He wanted absolution. He didn't ask for either. I should have protected you, he said finally. I let that land. You can protect yourself now. He swallowed. Can we start over? We can start differently. The line stayed open steady. No tears, no pleading. Come by Sunday, I added. If you'd like. He came. No gifts, no explanations. He fixed the loose cabinet hinge without being asked. When he left, he hugged me longer than usual. It felt sincere. It felt earned. I didn't reopen old accounts. I didn't track what I'd lost. I tracked what remained. My name, my home, my health, my voice. A neighbor stopped me one afternoon. You look lighter, she said. I am. That night I moved the envelopes again. There was room now, not for rent, for living. I didn't win money back. I didn't humiliate anyone. I didn't need to. What I kept was harder to take and impossible to return. Dignity stays once you choose it.